Hi guys, this is Sarah with Rockabye Apparel. I'm going to get started on our webinar today for Pinterest for Business. Basically just a 101 on using Pinterest for your small business. Now this is going to be geared towards small shops, photographers, bloggers, things like that. I own a boys only boutique that's online, and so that's what this will kind of be geared for. A few housekeeping items before we start, just to familiarize yourself with Google Hangouts in case you've never used it before. If you need to leave, that's fine. It won't disrupt anything, and there will be a playback afterwards on YouTube, and so I'll send out the link to anybody that I invited by email, and you'll get that, and you can watch it there on our Rockabye Apparel YouTube channel. Second of all, there is a Q&A section, and there's also a section called Showcase. If you scroll over the window where you see my picture, there should be a set of square dots. If you hover over that or click on it, you'll see there's one that says Q&A and one that looks like little yellow price tags, and that's Showcase. So Q&A, go in there. You can ask questions throughout the webinar, and I will address them all at the end. And then the Showcase is where we have several links that you can use to access the different websites we'll be talking about, just different resources that you may need. Those will all be there, so you can check those at any time. Be sure to take notes while we go, and just a little key on learning anything. Make a commitment to make some sort of change or take some sort of action within 48 hours. Because it's one of those things like a text message. It's like you either do it right away or you never do it. So make a commitment to do something within 48 hours, even if it's just setting up your page or just adding some pins or creating some boards. Just take some sort of action within 48 hours, and then that'll really get you motivated and keep you going. Okay, so now I'm gonna do a screen share and show you my PowerPoint. So just give me a second to get that started here. All right, so again, we're talking about Pinterest for Business, and I'm Sarah. Why Pinterest? I think a lot of you are here because you already know that it's one of the fastest growing social media sites that there is. And there's a long shelf life for Pinterest. So people pin things and then they keep coming back to them months later, where Facebook and Twitter, it gets buried and people tend to not click back to your website unless there's new content. So Pinterest lives for a long time. So I think you all know the value in it. That's why you're here. We're also going to go through getting started and setting up your account. Then we'll talk about creating boards, which is kind of the first step before you can start pinning. Then we'll talk a lot about pinning, what makes a good pin, a little bit about building a following, and then some things to remember, just some little key tips, and then a Q&A session at the end. Okay, so first of all, obviously you need to start a Pinterest account for your business. Be sure to keep your business and your personal account separate. You don't want to confuse your customers by having just your name associated with it. If you've already started an account under your personal name, but you're using it for your business, you can convert it to a business page. I know a lot of you, if you started a Pinterest for your business a long time ago, before they really introduced Pinterest for Business, you didn't really have another option. So now you're kind of stuck in this position where you have a personal account, but you can convert that very easily. I'm just going to switch to the website because there's some steps that I'll just show you on the website. Let's see. I'm going to switch to show you. Okay, so this is where you go. This is the page. It's business.pinterest.com, and this is in the showcase. If you need the link, it's there. But this is where you start. So you just click the red button that says Join as a Business if you do not already have an account. Or if you have a personal account, you just click Convert Now. Okay, and then this page is just going to walk you through all the steps. It's really pretty easy. You just set up your account. They're going to verify your website, which is going to just make sure that what you're showing is, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint now, is showing, sorry, I'm getting a little distracted here. Okay, switching my screens. Okay, it's going to verify your website, and it just is telling your customers you really are who you say you are, and you're not somebody posing to be your website or your brand. The next thing is to add a pin it button to your website. If you don't already have one built in through whoever your web host is, just Pinterest goes through the steps of giving you the code and the logo and everything that you need to add the pin it button to your site. Some websites have this built in. For example, I use Shopify and it already has it built in. I didn't have to add the pin it button. And just remember to use Pinterest guidelines to add it so that you add it to the right place and with the right logos. Next up is to pick a strong profile image. Logos work best for continuity and really for any business. It's going to resonate best, and you really want to have people start to recognize your logo. Just in case you want to know, the logo size or the profile image size is about 160 by 165. So it's really tiny. So that's why, little detailed pictures aren't going to show up very well. So probably just want to stick with a logo unless you have some other really strong image that'll represent your brand. Then write a profile description. Don't skip this part because this is searchable, and this, once people land on your page, will help them understand who you are, what kind of business you are, and what kind of services you offer, and what they'll find on your Pinterest page. And then start following people, because that's the first step to learning how to or to get people to follow you back. It's to follow people, and it helps build your newsfeed. Okay, so the next step is creating boards. First of all, you want to think about what's your message that you want to get across in your brand personality. I think if any of you already have a business, you know what this is. You have a brand personality that you probably already follow on your website and on your other social media. So you want your Pinterest to represent that. Are you goofy? Are you serious? Are you elegant? Your Pinterest boards should reflect that as well. And then you want to start with some key boards that showcase your product. Okay, so these are going to be the ones that focus on what you offer. You can group them in different ways. It's really best to come up with theme boards, or rather than just saying stuff on rockaboy.com. Because it doesn't mean anything to customers, and when they're seeing it in their newsfeed, they won't really understand. They won't click through to your board unless it kind of makes sense, or if they can see that it will have other things on it that they will like. So personality boards, for example, on mine, I have a different board for each kind of personality that my products speak to. So I have a punk and rocker board, I have a classic and preppy board, and I have a hip and trendy board. Yours may be different, obviously. Or you can group by color stories if you have a lot of different colors and you want to do that, or by trend. So let's say you have a nautical trend or something along those lines, that you can group your boards in that way. But these key boards are going to be the ones where you put most, if not all, of your products. You can intermix some other things that aren't your products in with it to make a cohesive board, but these are going to be the main ones that showcase your product and your main product. Then you create other boards to support your message. So what else is your customer into? What other things are they interested in? For example, I do a lot of obviously toddler fashion, boys fashion, and when I did promoting pins, which we can talk about in another session, but I looked at keywords and found that a lot of people that are looking at toddler fashion are also looking at nurseries, they're looking at recipes, they're looking at short haircuts. So there's a lot of things that don't necessarily relate to your key product, but they still are a target for what your customers are interested in. And if you are your own customer, what are you into? So I started a camping board because I have 2 boys, and obviously I have a boys fashion business, but being a mom of boys, that's something I'm interested in. And obviously I'm interested in recipes because I cook for my family. And so just kind of other boards that may or may not have your products on it, but they are there as just to generate interest, and they appeal to your customer base. Utilize partnerships here. If you work alongside a photographer or another retail shop or a blogger, any partnerships you have gained in your business, utilize those. You can pin on each other's board. You can pin their items on your boards and vice versa. You can collaborate. There's a lot of things you can do to utilize those partnerships. Pinners group by interest, so you should too. Like I said, don't just create a board that says my products, because they probably won't be cohesive. You group them by interest, so that board will make cohesive sense. And then build around the lifestyle of your audience. So of course, you probably know who your target customer is and what that market is. And so you just build around the lifestyle of them and their needs. Just a couple important things to know. Board names should be 20 characters or less so they don't get cut off on mobile. If it's longer, that's okay. As long as those first 20 characters, they'll know what you're saying. Okay, so they'll know what your board is even if the characters get cut off. And then you choose a cover pin. So this is going to be the one pin from your board that's the larger image of all of the others. And so pick something that'll look good in that space. You can test it and move it around. It just is the first pin on that board. Just make it a compelling image, and you could even use something that you know is repinned often, something that you already know is popular from your site. And that can get people to click into that board and see what else you have. You can also use secret boards, which are not public facing, as a staging or practice area. So you can throw a bunch of stuff up there and kind of work things out, move things around if you need to, and then publish it to go live. And then keep your most relevant and seasonal boards on top. So obviously you don't want to have Christmas on top all year round or a back to school board all year round. You can move them around. So when it's seasonally appropriate, you can move those boards up. And then when it's not, you don't have to delete the board. You can just move it down to the bottom. Let's look at some examples. So I'm going to switch again to my live page. And we're going to look at some examples. So I just pulled up a couple other retailers that are doing a good job. Did that work? Okay, good. You can see it. Okay, so Container Store is one that I really like what they've done with their boards. Okay, so they've geared everything toward what kinds, and everybody knows Container Store is storage and a lot of crafty things that are probably useless, but then once you have them, you realize they're really important. So they've got an organized kitchen, dreamy closets, organized house, organized bathroom, organized laundry room. So when people want to organize their laundry room, they're going to go to that one board. So everything is kind of grouped exactly how they want it to do. And then they've got a color board, and they've got some other things that don't relate to their products. Favorite quotes, throw a party, which may have their products in it, but it may not. What we stand for. So they've got some just, key things that speak to their customers about their brand, who they are, and helps the customers get to know who they are as a brand and as a company. And then at the bottom, they have all their Elfa stuff grouped together. And then you can see they've put all their holiday boards are still there at the bottom, and their spring organization, 4th of July. And they've just moved all that stuff down to the bottom. Okay, here's another example. This is Petite Swag. She is a blogger. She has her own blog, and she's also blogs for Babykins magazine, if any of you are familiar. She's based out of Germany, but she just has the cutest boards, and a lot of these are kids. But you notice how she's kind of made her boards all tie in together. So it's girls fashion I love, boys fashion I love, boys and girls fashion I love, kids street style I love. Everything ends with that I love, so it's cohesive. So if you get to know her and you follow her, you'll recognize her boards because she ends everything with I love and a little heart sign. So just kind of something cute like that. So a theme that will go together. Those kinds of things are always just make your board more interesting in general, and tie in who you are as a company. So this one is mine that I'll show you really quick. This is just one of my boards, Trendy Hipster. Hold on, let me go back to. So here's my boards that I said are grouped by personalities of classic preppy boy, rocker punk boy, trendy hipster boy. And some of my items do cross over. I just pin them on multiple boards because they do, they can be used in different ways to appeal to those different customers. And then I have the Shop Small board, which some of you who are watching may already be part of. But it's just where I've collaborated with some other small shops, and we all pin together, and it's just a way for followers that I already have to find other shops like me, and vice versa. It just helps us team up and partner together to see. This is one of my original boards, which was just products, and that was really dumb, and I just kind of left it there because it's there and whatever. But that's not really a great way to group your stuff because it doesn't mean anything. I mean, nobody's going to go and look at a random board that says products and be like, what's there? Because they don't know what that means. It doesn't mean anything to them. And then I just have some other things, as you can see, that relate to who my target customer is, boys' nursery ideas, boys' shoes, parent life hacks, family photo shoot ideas, which would be something cute if you're a photographer and you want to do like a family board, a headshot board, a senior portrait board, a wedding board, anything like that. Boy Mom, which is just quotes and fun things, fun activities for boys, and then I started a camping one. So just keep in mind those things and just create your boards around the lifestyle that you want to gear toward. And then I'm going to switch back to my, sorry I have to keep switching back and forth. It's just, it's not as easy and as smooth as I thought it was going to be switching back and forth, but I want you to see some live things as well as talking through the PowerPoint. Anyway, okay, so now let's talk about pinning. First and foremost is the most important thing. Get rich pins on your site. Why? Because it improves click-through rate. And Pinterest curates them for their feed. So if they're creating feed based on, let's say they want to do a kids fashion one, they're going to use rich pins to add to their feeds. They're not going to use the other ones because it is automated. There's also price notifications. This one is huge. It feeds from your website and lists the price of that item on your pin, and then if you lower the price, you put it on sale or you mark it down, anyone who's pinned that item, if it goes down in price more than 10%, they get an email notification that says, hey, this item that you pinned just lowered in price. And that can help bring back customers who already earmarked something that they liked on your site and bring them back and hopefully complete the transaction. To do this, you have to enable some code on your site. There's steps on the website to do this, on Pinterest website, and if you go to Showcase, I've included the link there. If you have a webmaster who's built your website for you, you can direct them to this link and they can help you with it. If you're lucky like me and you have Shopify, it's automatically done. So you don't, like, I didn't even have to worry about this at all because I'm not a coder, and so when I looked at it, I didn't really know what was going on, but thankfully Shopify just automatically did it. The other reason you want to do rich pins, other than those being the obvious reasons, is because Pinterest has now enabled buyable pins, and they have to be rich pins to convert over to buyable pins. So right now, buyable pins is only open to certain Pinterest users. It only started with some very large corporations like Nordstrom, and now it's trickling down to people who use Shopify. And I think there's a lag time in them converting from, they automatically are supposed to convert from rich pins to buyable pins, which basically just means instead of clicking on the pin and going to your website to buy it, they just click buy directly on Pinterest, and it completes the transaction there within Pinterest. And it's just a faster transaction. It's less clicks for the customer, which means you have less chance of losing them. So it's going to be really awesome for businesses to have that. So you've got to have rich pins. If you're not a retailer, you should still have them. They've got a lot of different rich pins. For bloggers, they have article rich pins. They have recipe rich pins. It just really makes the pins more readable and puts the most important information for those types of pins at the top and helps the customers find the information best. It's just formatted really nicely. And then again, if you're a retailer, product rich pins is where it's at. There's also movie pins and places pins. So I don't know, let's say if you have a travel blog, you can do places or anything like that. So it just depends on your business how you would use the rich pins. But for you guys watching this today, most likely you're going to use product rich pins, article or recipe rich pins. And recipe is really good if you're a food blogger. That's really cool. Once you have it enabled on your site, make sure you test it because it only works from a specific place. So for example, I'm going to switch again to my un momento. I'm going to go back to my board and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so this is a rich pin. Well, these are all rich pins on my board except this first one, and that's because I just set it up. I uploaded the image and I'm linking it to my homepage because I used it, I promoted that pin just to drive people to my website. But this is, so let's look at this t-shirt. Okay, so you can see on the preview page it says from Rockabye Apparel. On the bigger page it says found on rockabye.com. It has the product description that's already on your page. It says in stock, and it has the price range or a single price if you just have a single price. And then you can enter a description here, which that automatically populates based on what's on your website, but you can edit it as well. But this is what it looks like. And the one thing you have to check, so look at my website here for this Man Crush Monday tee. You can pin from a lot of different places. So really quick, let's go back to this page. And you can see I have a pin it button. I got a lot of little pop-ups here. Get rid of those. I have a pin it button on my browser, which a lot of customers will have. You can pin from any website, as you know. You can also, when you hover over the picture, you can pin it from there because it recognizes that it's a picture. However, if I pinned it from here or I pinned it from my browser, it would not recognize it as a rich pin. So when I go into mine, and on your website, you're just going to have to test it and see which one works. This is trial and error for me. But for me, and this is again Shopify, so it's already built in. But it's this down here where it says share this item, and we pin it here. So the rich pin only works when I pin it from this page, which is kind of annoying when you're trying to pin a whole bunch of things from your site. But it's all for the best in the end. It makes everything so much nicer on your thing, and it helps really get people to finish the transaction and drive people to your website. Okay, so if you're having any trouble getting rich pins enabled on your site, just Google rich pins and whoever your host site is. So like if you use Big Cartel, just Google rich pins Big Cartel, and you should be able to find some forums for some further help. Because thank you, Shopify, I didn't have to worry about that. But that's how you can kind of find some help if you need some further help. More about pinning. Obviously, use great images because this is an image website, and this is where people are looking at things, and they pin things based on what catches their eye. So make sure they're eye-catching images, they're good quality images. Some people, when you have a photo shoot, there are some people who do not a separate photo shoot, but within the photo shoot, they do special shots for what they know works on their Pinterest page. So just keep that in mind. Good quality images. Vertical images get more repins than horizontal. And the ideal size is 600 by 900 to 600 by 2100. Not a big deal to memorize that number. It's just something to keep in mind if you have a really, really, really tall image. If you're wondering if it's too tall, 600 by 2100 is really the max of where they get the sweet spot of repins. And also vertical images are optimized for mobile, so obviously it looks better on there. That's why they get more repins. If you put text overlays on your pictures, that's fine. I see a lot of that on Pinterest, and it's good because it gets people to know what your image is about. But keep them simple and readable. Don't put a ton of text on there that people aren't going to be able to read, especially on mobile. And then if you do a collage, use 4 or fewer images. Anything larger than that, you're not really going to be able to tell. It's going to be too busy. Second thing, or next thing, is write a great description. Okay, don't skip this part. Don't just leave your description blank because, one, you've got keywords that are going to help boost your pin and have people find your pins when they search. And it just helps people understand why you're pinning this. Like, what is it about this that makes it special? So your description should be helpful, conversational, inspirational, actionable. Most of the time when people see your pins on their newsfeed, they're not going to know you're a business. I mean, unless they're really looking at who's pinning it, they probably aren't going to know, or they're not going to look at that first. So it should be conversational. It should be friendly. Pin it and describe it like you're talking to a friend or you're telling your friend about your product, because it'll just resonate so much more. Use keywords in it, but don't be crazy, okay? Don't do like 25 hashtags with like boys style, boys fashion, boys this, boys that, if it were mine. Just in the context of what you're describing, use keywords and it picks it up. Like the algorithms are smart enough to know what keywords you're using and what keywords other people are using, okay? So just keep that in mind. And it should also, your description should also be timeless. So don't do something that's like this weekend 20% off, because like I said earlier, pins last forever. 50% of website visits come from pins that are 3.5 months old or older. So anything that's going to be short-lived is just not going to resonate. So just make sure it's timeless. And then the next thing is link your pin properly. Okay, so if you're not going to use rich pins, or for some reason you have something like I showed you that image that I uploaded and I linked it just directly to my landing page, and I use that to drive people not to a specific product, but just to my page in general. And I made sure it linked to my home page. So no matter what's going on, if a product sells out, it's not like I'm linking to specific product that's going to be gone, that particular pin will live for longer, and it's linked there so that when I just drive traffic to my site. And then once they're on my site, I have a pop-up that collects email addresses for they can subscribe to my newsletter, and that's how I can retain those customers, because only 3% of your visitors are going to buy something the first time they visit your website. So once you get somebody on your site, you're probably 97% chance you're not going to get them to buy something at that time, but you want them to come back. So I highly suggest putting pop-ups on your page, but that's outside of Pinterest. But I've seen a lot of pins where somebody's uploaded an image and they don't link it to anything. They don't link it back to that product page or even just the main page of their website. You just click through it and it just makes the image bigger and just opens the image in a new browser. And that doesn't help anybody. That's a dead end, okay? And that's not the point of doing Pinterest. The point is to get people to come to your website and get people to buy your products. So anytime if you're going to manually upload an image, make sure that you're linking it, if not to that product, then to your home page, okay? And I have another pinning page because there's so much to know about pinning. Okay, colorful images are repinned 3¼ times more than monochrome. So you know, you probably have a lot of products, you may not pin them all. So pin your colorful ones, pin the ones that are eye-catching. And another little key is reds, oranges, and browns get 2 times more pins than blue. So try and keep it in those warm colors. Obviously, if you have a blue product, that's cool. But pop it on a brighter background or use some red or yellow text overlay. And then monochrome, just try and stay away from the monochrome because it just doesn't pop out on the page. It's not eye-catching enough. The only exception I can think to that is like if you're a photographer and you're doing black and white, that can be really impactful. But in general, bright, colorful images do much better. And then images without faces are repinned 23% more. And I put a but in here because it's, you know, the statistic on this is only about 1/5 of images on Pinterest have faces. So if you run a kids business like I do, kids do resonate. I think I don't have any data behind this, but you see a cute kid, your attention is there. But for adults, women's fashion, men's fashion, it tends to not do as well to have the faces. But keep it in mind. And the other thing you can do is you can pin it both ways and you can see what works better. I have some images that's just the flat t-shirt or pant or whatever it is that I'm selling, belt, whatever. And a flat image is better because it's more prominent. It shows the detail of the item. So it just depends. And you can test it and see and look at your analytics and see what gets more repins for you. And then continue to build your pins based on what works best for your customer and your particular product. But just to keep that in mind with the faces thing, because that was something that you wouldn't really think of. Also, less empty background is better. So generally, you need to have less than 30% of a blank background. Sorry. So just really focus on the product. You know, anything that's kind of artsy is great for Instagram, but on Pinterest, you really are trying to sell that item and you want it to be compelling. You want somebody to click on it. And especially on mobile too, it's going to be hard to see if there's a lot of blank background. Okay, it's going to get lost. So make sure it's really impactful. Another idea is pin items as a collection. So maybe you pin a t-shirt, you pin a pant, you pin a shoe, you pin a belt, you pin all these things. Because as you pin, they show up in someone's news feed in real time. So anything you pin at the same time. So instead of pinning all your t-shirts from your site and then all your pants, pin it as a collection and a color story, and then that kind of catches their eye and they'll see it's all from the same board, and then that's how you can get people to click through as well. Pin at peak times. So generally speaking, 2 to 4 p.m. and 8 to 11 p.m. are the peak times for Pinterest. Like I said, when you pin, it's real time. So you want to pin at those times that there's the most people there interacting with Pinterest so you don't get lost. And use analytics to tailor it to your site. So review your analytics and for your page, see when your people are pinning and then just tailor it to that. And in general, Thursdays are your fashion days. Now, this doesn't mean if you have a fashion business, you're only going to pin on Thursdays, but that's when you might want to focus on your products and your items from your website or new releases. And then on the other days, you can focus on, you know, posting recipes or just on some of your other supporting boards. And this is just an interesting fact that I put in there, but humor is the fastest growing category on Pinterest. So you know those little semi cards where there's like a joke or there's something funny, and that's why some of these boards that you see have inspirational quotes or whatever, quotes that we love, because it's a way that they can pin humorous things, and those get repinned and get people coming to your website. Okay, so I just wanted to show some examples, and I pulled these. And just before I show, I just want to say, if I happen to pull something of yours, no offense. I'm trying to, give some constructive criticism, so hopefully nobody's upset. But I just grabbed some random things that I found when I was searching. So on this one, they've got this is an example of like a background where there's too much background. Okay, so remember, only a third of it should be background. So this is like 25% of the item, and this is the item that they're selling. So it's this tiny little thing, and this was on my desktop, so you could actually see it better than you would on mobile. This would be a really cute, funky, artsy, interesting image for Instagram, but it actually is hard to see on Pinterest. It's not very Pinterest friendly. There's also no captions or keywords on here, so make sure that you're adding those because it does help the relevancy of your items. And then it doesn't link to the product page. You can't tell from this slide, but when you click on it, it goes to an Instagram page that actually doesn't belong to the shop itself. It's like somebody else's page. So while that's great for giving credit to the photographer, which you could do in your captions, but it doesn't drive the customer to buy that because they're not being taken to that product page. So if you want to repurpose images from another social media site, that's fine. Just make sure that you upload it and you link it properly to that product page. Okay, this was one that I found when I was doing my camping board, and I took these screenshots from my mobile site or from my phone. So keep in mind that these were tiny images that were on my phone, okay? So on the left, you see this one. Remember I said collages should be 4 images or less. This has 10, and you can't see like really anything, and they're not compelling enough for me to even understand what's going on in any of these pictures. Now, I repinned it because I saw 10 tips for camping organization. So that's a good use of text overlay, but I don't really know what's going on here. But I pinned it, and it's one of those things where I pinned. I was like, I'll go look at that later. And so you want to just make sure that you're using images. You want it to be something that somebody's going to click on and be like, I need to see that right now. Not I'll look at it later, because they may not. And then right next to it, there's another one that's just the ultimate camping checklist, and it's all this teensy tiny little text that, again, I cannot read, but I pinned it because I thought, hey, this might actually be useful to one day print out. But again, that one day may never come. So it would be really cool is if you had a blog that was sharing this information, you'd make a graphic that says the ultimate camping checklist printable or something like that, and colorful, because like, look at this, it's not eye-catching at all. It's just black and white and boring. And then this is an example of a good one. So Camp Crafts, over 45 ideas, quick and easy, 15 minutes or less. So it's minimal text. It's a very simple but eye-catching image in the red and orange hues that catch the eyes, and browns. So this is, and it's has a border around it. It's really eye-catching, okay? And you can see too, they've used rich pens because it has the title, it has who it's by, and then it has a caption. And then, so this is a really example of a really good one. Okay, so next we're going to talk about building a following. So it's pretty much like other social media networks. You add friends from your personal network, you follow people that you know, you invite people that you know via email, partner with your professional network, bloggers, photographers, complimentary shops that are like yours. Reach out to those people, find their boards and find their pages, follow them, and hopefully you can create a follow back scenario. Create group boards where you have some sort of theme that you and some others have something in common, and you can all group together and add them as collaborators, and they can pin on your board, and then you're exposed to their network of people and vice versa. The other thing you could do is you could have a guest pinner. You could have a day where if you're a retail shop and you have a partnership with a blogger, you could have the blogger take over your Pinterest for a day and be a guest pinner. And then you can kind of change your description for that day to say, here's who the guest pinner is. It helps that guest pinner drive back to their site, as well as gets you some new and interesting content that maybe you hadn't thought of yet. And hopefully can get get some follow backs from that with that partnership. Be interactive. Follow back when people follow you, like things, comment on things, repin on things. Okay, so like when they see a lot of activity, they're going to come back and follow you as well. And then your items will become more repinned because you're being interactive, then therefore people are interacting with you. Create relatable boards and topics. You know, what are things that your customer likes to talk about? What are they interested in? We kind of talked about that before with boards. You could also host a contest. There's a lot that can go into this, and so that's like a whole different conversation, but that's something that you can do is you can structure a Pinterest contest to get people, whether you have an email subscriber list, you know, a strong base on Instagram, you can cross over and bring people over to do a contest on Pinterest. And cross promote, you know, use your other social media. You can find your most repinned item and feature it on Instagram or tweet it or put it on Facebook. And then email marketing, put it in your email, say, hey, come follow us on Pinterest to see, and then you can put in your most repinned items, or you can, you know, promote a contest you might be doing or whatever. But just use that email list to build your following. And then put it on your website, you know, make it prominent where they can come follow you and make it a feature so they'll come. People who come to your site from they find you from other ways, and then they know that you have Pinterest. Okay, a couple things to remember when you're using your Pinterest for Business site. Always follow Pinterest brand guidelines, because this could get you blacklisted if you don't. You only use Pinterest language for Pinterest activity. So if you have a blog, don't ever say, pin your favorite blog post or something. Like, it always just keep Pinterest stuff to Pinterest and don't try and cross over and use it on your page or anywhere else. Use their badge logo. So that's the little P. You can use that on their page, and if you go to their brand guidelines page, they give you you can download the logo, but not their word mark. So their full logo that says Pinterest, you can't use that unless you're redirecting people to download the app. So don't use that on your site, and don't use that in any graphics. Like if you're trying to promote a Pinterest contest or something, just use the P badge logo. Don't use their word. And there's all the more details on the brand guidelines on their brand guideline page. I just wanted to call out those two most important things. Try to pin daily. Even if you don't pin a lot, pin something, okay? Because that keeps your activity in the news feed. It keeps interesting content on your page. It keeps your page fresh, and it keeps people coming back to you, okay? So whether you're pinning your own items or you're pinning other people's things, just pin every day. You can pin when you're in bed. It's so easy, especially if you have the app. Consider pinners first. So review your analytics and know what your customer likes, know what they're responding to. And again, like, we can cover analytics in another webinar. If I can do like a 102 and we can talk about analytics, but they offer all the information. You can see like what's getting clicked the most, what has the most reach, and what are people viewing and then maybe not clicking on, and you can try and make some improvements. So just consider first what your pinners want to see. Okay, be authentic. So your page should reflect your values and your brand personality. Don't try and be someone you're not. Don't try and be too stuffy if you're really fun and whimsical. Just be who you are, and people will really appreciate that. And again, just use analytics to understand your audience. Okay, so I wanted to jump over to Pinterest and look at some live examples. So I am going to switch over to... Give me one moment. How's everybody doing? Good? Okay, so we're going to go and jump over to look at some live examples of Pinterest. Okay, so let's just we'll just go to like my home feed. So this is obviously people I follow and things that Pinterest has shown me because they know what I tend to pin. Okay, so this is great because it's like all image, okay? There's not a lot of background. And then it's from Etsy, so you can see this is a rich pin. So it's got the title, it says who it's from, it's got a description. Okay, now this description is a little like stuffy. Like, as a customer, I'm not gonna read this because it looks like it's stuffed with keywords, you see what I'm saying? So it would be really awesome if if it was like, and it doesn't really need the price here either, because once you click in it, it's a rich pin, they're going to see the price, and your price might change over time, and a rich pin is going to change your price for you automatically based on your website refresh. You don't have to go back in and like manually change all your prices on all of your pins. Okay, so that's the only thing I would change there. This is cool. This is a collage. It's it has a very simple cute travel themed nursery with navy blue and white. Okay, so that's cool. It's in blue, which tends to not get repinned, but if it's blue, it's got to be blue, right? I mean, baby people who are looking for boy stuff are probably going to be looking for blue. So don't completely shy away from it. It's just something to keep in mind. But again, these kinds of captions, now this is just a friend of mine, so it's not a business, but this is the kind of thing that people want to read in the description. It's conversational. This is the cutest little party ever. If we have a son, I'm totally doing this for one of his birthdays. You know, so just make it conversational, something that people will find interesting, and it can help them want to repin it. This is a cute one. It's really colorful. It's about the quilt, so that takes that's not like a lot of background. That's the item. So that's really good. Again, with the thing with faces, see, like this girl is beautiful, and like look how gorgeous she is, and that's eye-catching to me. So that's why I say you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt if about images that don't have faces, because sometimes faces are really impactful. This is a really cool one because I think people like lay flats in fashion. They like to see little outfits put together. There's 4, so it's not too overwhelming. The text is really simple. And even it's white background, so but there's different colors. I don't know, it's just really interesting. I think that's cool. Let's see what else we can find. Here's another thing where it's like they've used text. This is a funny image. It's eye-catching. It's monochrome, so maybe something a little brighter would have been better, or adding brightness to this text since the image is all white. But they're, you know, white background, white clothes, whatever, you know. So and then this is a white background down here and gray. So some bright colors here would probably be really good. But the text overlay is simple. It's not too overwhelming. It's really cute. Let me see. Here's a vertical image that's probably like too long. Okay, so it's really long, so it probably wouldn't fit within a single in mobile. And so, you know, in one shot, you can't even get to the description, so it just might be a deterrent a little bit. Here's one. There's a lot of images here in this collage. I would probably limit it to just 4. Because especially on mobile, that's going to be tiny and you're not going to really see it as well. Let me see. Find a couple more examples. This is kind of monochrome. It's kind of dark a little bit, so like lighter pictures. So here's a blog I want to show you guys, and it has kind of these compare and contrast, and it tells you how much difference there is. So like a bluish image versus a reddish orange image. The reddish orange is going to get twice as many repins in images that are blue. Number of colors, okay, multiple, you see the picture on the left, multiple dominant colors. That's going to get pinned 3¼ times more than single dominant, so that's silver with the white background. Okay, lightness, so lighter images are going to get repinned more. Very dark images are not going to be as impactful. See, it says medium lightness are 20 times more likely to get repinned than dark images, so keep them light. Saturated, so 50% saturation on the left and very desaturated on the right. So if they're 50% saturated or more, they're 10 times more repins than desaturated images. Aspect ratio, this is where the vertical images, you have to make sure they're not too skinny. You can see the girl on the left is like a really tall, thin image that's probably going to get lost next to that delicious looking sandwich, which is a 2 to 3 aspect ratio. And that's going to get 60% more repins than super tall images that are just going to kind of get lost in a news feed. Background. So here's one that's where it's more than 90% background that's white, and it's just the sunglasses with a lot of background, versus on the left, it's all decor. So that's more eye-catching than the one on the right, which has too much background in it. So if it has less than 10% background, it's going to receive 2 to 4 times more repins than images with more than 40%. Texture is another kind of interesting thing, and this is like you might have to have a little bit of a creative eye for this, but a rough image on the left and a smooth image on the right. The smooth images are going to get repinned 17 times more than images with rough texture. But again, it speaks to your product, so just keep that in mind when you're choosing which products you pin, if you're not going to pin everything from your page. And this is where they talked about the faces versus no faces. People tend to think of themselves in the scenario if you don't see the face, but it's like, that doesn't look like me, so that doesn't really resonate with me. So, but I don't know, again, with kids, I think it's a little different. So anyway, those are just some side-by-side good examples of what makes them good or bad, and just what makes a stronger pin. Okay, so I'm gonna flip over to Q&A. And I'll see any questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up the webinar for now, and I'm going to have this available on YouTube afterwards. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment below with any questions you might have. I'll be happy to come back and answer them. And also, if you have any topic ideas, if you liked this and you want to do something similar, I can do a 102 class, and we can kind of dig into promoted pins and analytics or any other topics. If you have any topic ideas, feel free to leave them below. Or if I didn't cover your type of business and you still have questions, then feel free to leave those below and I will get to them. So I really appreciate you guys taking time. I know it's nighttime, or some of you that are overseas, middle of the day, it's kind of hard to carve out some time, but I appreciate you watching, and hopefully we can do this again. Thanks, guys. Bye.